Hello, friends, and welcome to episode 131 of the Digital Slice podcast, brought to you by the Friedman Group, LLC. I'm Brad Friedman. The Digital Slice podcast is the podcast that brings you a slice of the digital marketing news, tools, and tactics you need to succeed. Be sure to read the show notes to learn about our partners and all the tools we use to bring you the Digital Slice podcast. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Kate McQuade. With 20 years in marketing, Kate is an experienced, technology-savvy executive, adept at navigating dynamic regulatory and reimbursement landscapes. She is a trusted advisor to senior leadership, providing strategic insights to gain a competitive edge in swiftly changing market dynamics, and is enthusiastic about assisting clients in devising and executing impactful solutions that yield tangible results. I think you're going to find my discussion with Kate really interesting and full of valuable insight. Hey, Kate, welcome to the Digital Slice podcast. How are you today?
I'm doing well, Brad. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, thank you. I'm looking forward to talking to you. Why don't we kick it off with you telling us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I'm Kate McQuade, and I've been in marketing for 20 years now in all sorts of different verticals, but definitely found my home in IT as well as life sciences. So I've been a little bit of everywhere. I've been with P360, my current company, for about 2 years, but really love all things marketing and really exploring, the different facets of it and kind of figuring out what works with what.
Very cool. So is marketing in the niche of IT different than marketing everywhere else in the world?
Yeah, I think it is. It's, I think no matter which vertical you're in, boils down to knowing who your audience is. So the audiences are going to be a little bit different when you're talking to somebody who is, on a dev team versus somebody who is more manufacturing. Those are different types of audiences. And then, of course, B2B sales versus B2C sales, direct to consumer. I mean, all of that's going to be slightly different. So yes, it is all marketing. And yes, some things overlay to them. And there's umbrellas that you can fall into with the different buckets of what you're doing. But I think the verticals do play a hand in it. And especially life sciences, you look at that and it's a pretty traditional field as far as that goes, and making sure that things are a lot more compliant, similar to like a fintech type of environment. So there's a lot of regulation that goes along with it. So sometimes things are a little bit slower for adoption, as opposed to if you're somewhere like if you were doing high fashion marketing, that's, moves very quickly, and that's can take a lot more risks as far as their marketing goes. So slightly different there, but definitely more on the conservative side for that.
Yeah, I think knowing your audience is so important. Can you just talk a little bit more about that?
Sure. I couldn't agree more. I think it's vital to be really tuned in to who you're selling to. And the thing I love about marketing is that it's constantly changing. I always say that it's a moving target, because what worked 6 months ago isn't going to work now, and what works now might not work 6 months from now. So really understanding who your buyers have been in the past, and also any feedback that you're having with current customers now. So really kind of tailoring that messaging to them, because a lot of times when you're selling something, whether it's B2B or B2C, it's not just one person. You're not just selling it to, this demographic of an age group, male, female, or, college graduate, whatever that specific is. Sometimes it's, 3 or 4 different personas, and really understanding what drives them is really going to make an impact on you being able to have your message stick with them. Because a marketing person, I open way more emails than an IT person is going to open because I'm looking for different things. Not only am I looking at the content, but I'm also looking at delivery. I'm looking at the style. I'm looking at presentation. I'm going to absorb it more. So my data from a marketing person, I'm going to look for something different than somebody in development who's going to want that more technical, like, is it going to be easy? Is it going to make my life easier? Is this a fix to a problem that I have? It's going to need to be a little bit nuanced as far as what that audience is. So really key on looking at it and then re-looking at it, making sure that you're assessing it, making sure that you're up to date and understanding really where they're coming from, because that's going to change all the time.
Yeah, for sure. And then knowing your audience, is the first step, and then really tailoring your content to that audience is also important. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's not just tailoring the message to them, but also meeting them where they are. So some people are really attuned to, used to love to get that direct mail in the, through out of their post box. And even though that's some effective now, it's kind of a novelty. And that's why it's effective now, because it's something a little bit different. But, whether it's an email campaign or whether it's some sort of social media banner, or it's text messaging where you can have, communications that way to get your brand awareness out. I mean, there's just so many different avenues that you can connect with someone, and making sure that you're meeting them where they're comfortable, I think is huge to get your message to go home. They used to say that you would need 7 touch points to make your message stick and somebody remember who you are and your company. And now they're saying that's up to 18. So think about that. I mean, it's more than double that touch point of you needing to see an email and see a banner and see a LinkedIn post and get, a postcard in the mail, whatever those touch points are. It's really just in the day and age that we live in, just having those touch points and making sure that it's viable, I think is it's so much more important now that it used to be, 2 decades ago.
So if it's going to take me 18 touches to get somebody's attention, I am probably going to have to be working pretty hard and consistently trying to touch my audience, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's so important because for someone to make a connection and an association, it's not just the first time that they see, a new t-shirt that's for sale. They might see it on their feed in LinkedIn or on Instagram, and then they might see an email, and then maybe they see a magazine ad, or maybe they see these other touch points. And then maybe if you're lucky, they'll hear somebody talking about it, because that one is, that one's a huge one. That word of mouth one cannot be understated enough. But really just kind of being out there and talking about your brand or your product, I think is just so huge. And if you can't just say it once and then think you did the right job, like I put in one ad in a magazine and I did my job and I can hang up my hat for the day. You really have to be consistent with that. So having something that's going to be out there in the world, in the ether, so that people can see it and start to recognize, oh, hey, I know that purple goes to P360, or hey, I know that red goes to XYZ. It's like they need to understand that and have that brand recognition before they start to, have some thought process behind you.
What are the marketing tactics that you're seeing getting the most success from these days?
I think it's really trying to focus on that personalization. So there's so many different opportunities in today's innovation with the technology to be able to track a buyer's journey. So to understand, Brad, when you come to our website, and then I know that you're on our website for 5 minutes, and then you went to our LinkedIn site, and then you went and read an article, or whatever that path is, I also will know when you come back to our website. And so having some sort of email follow-up the 4th time that you've been there, or whatever I decide the cadence is, it feels more personal when it's like you get an email that says, hey, Brad, I know you were looking on our sites for this information. Here's some more information in case you want it, and help to bolster that. I think that goes a long way. And we've seen the results of that going a long way and getting more engagement from that, as opposed to treating everyone the exact same. Because if the person who goes to your website the first time and spends 1 minute there is different than the person who goes there, 5 times in a span of 2 weeks, they're probably farther along on their buyer journey. And if you can meet them and recognize that, there's a lot of appreciation from that end. Also, statistically, Gartner came out with this statistic, and I believe it's like 82% or 81% of people that by the time they reach out to a person nowadays, they've already gone through the significant chunk of their buying journey. So they don't want to talk to people anymore. They just want to read it for themselves, which is why it's so important to have that consistent information out there so they can get a lot of that information before they, whittle it down to 3 or 4 people that they want to talk to when they're finally vetting out a company. So having that messaging be a little bit more appropriate, going into those conversations, knowing you visited my website 6 times in 2 weeks is much more powerful than just thinking that they're a cold lead and somebody who's just coming, to your site for the first time. So really having that personalized touch, I think, goes a long way.
Yeah, I agree. 100%. People that have listened to more than one episode of my podcast know that I am very big on uh, collecting and then looking at your data,
Mm-hmm.
looking at metrics and setting goals and all of that. What do you think about the purpose and use of data today?
I think it's vital. I think that you are leaving so much on the table if you don't look at analytics. For you to really understand what's working and what's not, um, you have to look at it. You have to be able to see, say you have a LinkedIn ad and you're posting something, and then you want to be able to compare it to something that you did last week. If you're instantly seeing no response to one or no form fills for one, then you obviously want to take one down and then go back to the one that's tried and true. That A/B testing there, and to be able to have that real time data that you can look at is key. Otherwise, you're really not worth your salt. You're not doing all you can do for your product or your brand to really be out there representing them and making sure that your message is sticking. Same thing goes for email campaigns. No one's going to open. You're never going to have like 100% open rate. I mean, that's, fantasy land. And even your list is never going to be 100% accurate because people switch roles and they switch jobs and, things just fall off. But keeping a healthy list, make sure you're looking at those analytics because that's very important from a back end standpoint. And then also looking at those open rates and click through rates and making sure that people are engaging appropriately. And then adjusting that list and, looking at those opt out, opt in features and subscription features is huge because not only would you know if the messaging is working correctly, but you're also learning about, is the time of day the right time to send it? What day of the week is the time to send it? Am I sending it to the right, titles? Maybe the whole list is not the right people because I'm sending it to, interns when they're not the decision makers. And, it's not going to get the same response as somebody who's a higher up in decision maker. So there's so many different ways that you can pull data now from all the different social media sites. Obviously Google Analytics is like a tried and true. You've got SEMrush. I mean, you've got so many things. Your CRM has it nowadays. I mean, it's just, there's so many aspects that you can pull from and pull them all together and just have a better education for, what's working for your team and what's not. And then you can pivot as you need.
So with all of that data that's out there and available to us, narrow the list. Tell me, for my small business owners that don't have a lot of time to review the data, what they should be looking at.
You should be looking at reach. And reach is a broader term for who's engaging in your email. And I think that some people really focus on that click through rate. And I think that that's wrong. And I'm going to tell you why. Click through rate is super important, of course, because they're opening, they're reading, and they're click throughing. So they're doing several steps. But that open rate is also important because if you're catching, John Doe and he's in a rush or he's waiting for a doctor's appointment and he opens it and skims it, that's still important, even if he didn't click through it. He might go back to it later. So you can also drill down and look on those analytics and say, okay, he opened it 3 times. First 2 times he just skimmed it, but the third time he did something with it, or he went and read an article, or he did something else. Or you pull other data and you found out that maybe he was waiting for a doctor's appointment, and the next day he went on your website and read 2 articles on there. So really taking those pieces into account, I think, is important. And that open rate to me is much more telling than that click-through rate, even though, of course, you love those click-through rates when they get through because it's that immediate response. But I don't want to discount those, open rates because those are just as important and give you a lot of information, just kind of peeking behind the curtain that somebody's interested in something that you've said.
Yeah. I totally agree. Tell us a little bit more about what you do and who you do it for. Give us a little more information on that.
Sure. So I'm the senior marketing director for P360, and they're a technology company that offers solutions in life sciences for communication. So, for instance, we have a product, Zing, which does compliant text messaging. So say you are a pharmaceutical company who wants to send educational information to their patients about, diabetes care, then we can help facilitate, make that compliant so that everything is being tracked. To follow, there's a lot of guidelines for that. So to make sure that it's being tracked and making sure that everybody's kind of, dotting their I's and crossing their T's. We also have Bird's Eye, which is a data management platform. So it mostly is sold to enterprise customers, but that is really using AI and ML to have those sales forecasts and territory alignment and taking that silo data and making sure they make sense. So really all about making that communication happen in a tangible way, which has been pretty exciting to kind of see the nuances of it and see it kind of live and breathe, because a lot of it is very scalable, customizable to clients, which is it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. You mentioned that magic word AI that everybody's talking about these days. What do you think the place of AI is in our marketing today?
I actually think it plays a really exciting role. I know there's so much back and forth with it, and some people are really nervous about where it could go. And I think that that's warranted, because if AI is left to kind of consume anything, you can get a lot of false information from it. So that's just a known fact. But if you're using it in a manner to kind of jog your memory or to get the juices flowing, then I think it's an amazing tool, because sometimes when you're dealing with marketing specifically, you can get stuck with things. I'm constantly telling my team that I'm like, okay, well, just whenever you're brushing your teeth and you get like a thought, a light bulb moment, write it down. Because in creative roles, a lot of times you can have 3 days where like you're not creative at all, and you're just doing the tasks that you need to and cleaning up, the CRM and, doing other things. And then you'll have a day where it just hits you and you're just writing and you have all this blur of ideas. So if you're in one of those rut days and you need to come up with something, AI is a great way to just kind of kick that can, or kick the door open, kind of get those juices flowing. So I think used in that way and used in some research, I think it has very valuable tools, especially to kind of keep things going. And forecasting as well, because you can take a lot of that data and say, okay, instead of me looking at it and saying these emails made most sense on a Tuesday at 11:34 to send, they can do that automatically for you and make sure that they give you, hey, here's what I noticed. And they can do those analytics for you. And that's pretty valuable too, because it's saving everybody time. So it also has applications for like the Salesforce. So when the Salesforce might need something, it can let marketing know. So it's a nice crossover and a bridge that it can be used for. So I'm pretty excited for it. I'm just trying to stay ahead of the curve. So anytime something else comes out, I love playing with the new technology that comes along, and just kind of making sure that I'm like, okay, well, what can I use this for? And, what do we need to be careful of? Because, of course, when some things came out, there was a lot of, talk about, is Google going to ding you for this? Is it going to ding you for that? And I think right now it's no, but you still want to keep an eye on it. So it's definitely not a let AI do everything for you. I like to use it as a kind of spurring those juices kind of momentum.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. I agree with you, and also think that AI still really needs the human touch, and we need to understand that and not just take everything that it gives us and assume it's all accurate and correct and everything. We need to be on top of everything that we're putting out there in the world, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely agreed. There's nothing that's going to replace the human touch. And you might get really accurate information or something that could work, but then you as a person still need to understand your brand that you're trying to present, because they could give you some ideas and it's just not representative of the tone or tenor that you want to put out. So you need, as a person, to be able to make that decision of, okay, this could work, but it's maybe a little bit close to the line where it's not quite the brand personality that one we want to put out. And you still need that human touch to be able to do that and make those decisions, at least at this.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Okay, Kate, give us one or two takeaways you want the listeners to take away from our discussion today.
I guess the biggest thing would just be, stay flexible but consistent. So be flexible, constantly learn from your analytics, constantly learn from your learning, from your reporting, making sure that you're flexible enough to, move one way or the other or pivot if something's not working, because that's kind of the fun of marketing, is that you get to kind of ebb and flow with it, and making sure that you're consistent. Don't just put something out and expect it to do the work for you. You've got to do the work and make sure that you're keeping it going and keeping that ball going.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Where's the best place for people to find you online?
Sure. I mean, I'm on LinkedIn, and you can find me at p360.com. I'm definitely all over there. And then, of course, on LinkedIn, linkedin.com/Kate McQuade.
Okay, great. Kate, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me today.
Great. Thank you, Brad. Thank you so much for having me.
You bet.